You are listening to Transmigrating into the male supporting character's ex-wife on Galaxxy romance novel, where a transmigrator wakes up in the body of a discarded ex-wife. Ruan Jiu Jiu, once a cannon fodder in the novel, now opens her eyes in a world she doesn't recognize. Divorce papers are already on the table, but will she stay silent and endure, or fight to never be abandoned again? A tale of power, defiance, and a love both subtle and fierce begins right now. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and hit the bell so you won't miss what's next. Let's dive in. In the hazy realm between sleep and wakefulness, Ruan Jiu Jiu was stirred by a persistent clamor. Her phone's incessant ringing drilled into her skull, a relentless annoyance. With eyes half closed and fingers fumbling across the soft duvet, she stretched her arm towards the bedside table. Her hand brushed against a glass, nearly toppling it, before finally seizing the culprit. Without glancing at the caller ID, Ruan Jiu Jiu answered, "Hello." Her voice a lazy murmur. "Jiu Jiu, come quickly. Your father-in-law, he's fading." "Father-in-law?" She almost retorted, "and I'm a eunuch." The long unheard voice, choked with sobs, took Ruan Jiu Jiu a moment to place Chu Wei, a ghost from the past. It also reminded her that, technically, she did have a father and mother-in-law. Through the phone, Chu Wei wept. He was suddenly rushed to emergency. The doctors say he doesn't have much time left. Come see him one last time. Chu Wei's words were a blur of grief, but they jolted Ruan Jiu Jiu awake. Her eyes snapped open, and she instinctively sat upright. Her first thought, does Cheng Jun know yet? Ruan Jiu Jiu hung up and strode, pushing open the door. Cheng Jun was rummaging through the fridge, searching for something unknown, but he instantly closed it the moment she entered. Ruan Jiu Jiu approached swiftly, her unease palpable enough for Cheng Jun to notice. "What's wrong?" he asked. Ruan Jiu Jiu paused, her gaze meeting his. She tried to keep her voice level. "Chu Wei called me," she said. "Uncle might not make it." "Oh." Cheng Jun stood silently, his face expressionless. His long, narrow, sleeping phoenix eyes were half-drooped, betraying no ripple of emotion. He twisted open the Yakult in his hand. "She's harassing you again." Chu Wei, he knew, always picked on the softer targets. If she dared call Cheng Jun, he would simply hang up the instant he heard her voice. Ruan Jiu Jiu pursed her lips. "Make your own decision. Whatever you choose, I will support it." She knew nothing of Cheng Jun's parents, nor the extent of his father's transgressions. Whether he chose to visit or not, his reasons were his own. Anyone who invoked family was merely guilting him. A simple phrase like unbreakable blood ties could not erase all past grievances. As her words faded, Cheng Jun looked at her, silent for a moment. In Ruan Jiu Jiu's mind, he had transformed into a poor, vulnerable soul. She watched him with tender eyes, silently offering her strength. Their gazes locked, and in that moment, it felt as though eternity had found its pause. Cheng Jun, still deep in thought, finally spoke. "Then, I want dumplings for breakfast." Ruan Jiu Jiu. Huh. They were discussing his father, and he suddenly veered to food so seamlessly, so naturally. Cheng Jun, utterly unapologetic and with a maddeningly slow pace, said, "Didn't you say you'd support all my choices?" Ruan Jiu Jiu. Their perfectly serious conversation had completely derailed. Dumplings for breakfast? Why not wontons? And a side dish too, perhaps? Cheng Jun. Sounds rather good. Ruan Jiu Jiu responded with a death glare. Cheng Jun only quieted down after receiving a playful smack. Dumplings for breakfast? Impossible. They had recently embraced healthy eating. The fridge was stocked with wholesome ingredients. Meat was mostly lean chicken and fish with a little beef. Ruan Jiu Jiu was utterly delighted with their diet. What should one eat in the morning? Nutritious things, of course. Whole wheat bread, a purple sweet potato, milk, and oats made for the optimal healthy breakfast. Cheng Jun took a few flavorless bites of whole wheat bread, sighing deeply. Ruan Jiu Jiu sat opposite him, happily popping cherry tomatoes, one after another, thoroughly enjoying their healthy lifestyle. She supervised him throughout. Eat it all, no leftovers. Cheng Jun's face was a portrait of sorrow. Cheng Jun no longer brought up his father, and Ruan Jiu Jiu didn't press. Since the person directly involved didn't seem to care, she, who was technically a daughter-in-law but not really, simply focused on being a good wife. They sat in the car, each lost in their own thoughts. Ding ding dong dong. Ruan Jiu Jiu's phone rang again. She picked it up. An unfamiliar number, but she knew it was Chu Wei. She probably hadn't received a response after waiting for ages and was getting anxious. Ruan Jiu Jiu glanced at Chang Jun, who sitting beside her was faster. He took her phone, hung up, blacklisted the number and powered it off. All in one fluid motion. Ruan Jiu Jiu stared dumbfounded. Chang Jun returned the phone, his voice mellow. No need to mind her. You can turn it back on later. Oh, all right. Ruan Jiu Jiu took back her phone, and the car returned to a quiet atmosphere. She secretly peeked at Chang Jun, who was gazing out the window, his elbow resting on the sill, lost in thought. He was more silent than usual today. Perhaps Chang Jun was also feeling a touch of sadness. It must have been difficult for him to feign nonchalance all morning. Ruan Jiu Jiu's heart softened. She bit her lip, wondering if she should say something. Chang Jun, still looking out the window, his eyelids lowered, his lashes long and thick. His lips, pale, parted in a soft sigh. Whole wheat bread really is terrible. Ruan Jiu Jiu, her hand half extended. Ruan Jiu Jiu must be mad to ever believe Chang Jun had a serious bone in his body. Upon entering the company, she happened to run into Tu Nan, who was fawning over the secretary like a lapdog. Gone were his usual boasts about giving the little secretary a chance, or the woman chasing the man. It's a breeze. Ruan Jiu Jiu watched, amused and exasperated, pretending not to notice as she quietly returned to her office. She opened her computer, staring blankly at her sketches. Chu Wei, though foolish, was also cunning. Ruan Jiu Jiu truly hoped she wouldn't stir up more trouble under false pretenses. Her sketches remained formless despite her efforts. Ruan Jiu Jiu sat lost in thought. It seemed ever since she arrived in this world, Chang Jun had never mentioned his mother. Aside from this house and Chu Wei's fragmented remarks, Ruan Jiu Jiu suddenly realized how little she knew about Chang Jun's past. Sigh. She couldn't help but let out a sigh. Such intimate unfamiliarity. Why did it feel so awkward? Her phone buzzed, displaying a message from Chang Jun. Chang Jun. What are you doing? Sitting in his office, Chang Jun was already contemplating Korean barbecue for dinner. But whether barbecue was actually on the menu depended on Ruan Jiu Jiu's approval. To others, Chang Jun appeared to be intently staring at his phone, his expression grave, as if negotiating a billion-dollar deal. Fu Zicheng, who was projecting a PPT on a tablet, stammered. His gaze flickered uncertainly towards Chang Jun, unsure whether to continue. Chang Jun's peripheral vision caught him, and he motioned for him to proceed. Fu Zicheng thought. Asterisk, the boss must be discussing extremely important business. I must perform well. Asterisk, the rest of the conference room. Asterisk, has the company encountered a major crisis? Why is the boss's expression so solemn? Asterisk, the entire conference room was filled with apprehension. Everyone secretly speculating about what had caused Chang Jun's grim expression. Chang Jun sat ramrod straight, like a student awaiting exam results, anticipating Ruan Jiu Jiu's reply. After a long pause, Ruan Jiu Jiu responded. Ruan Jiu Jiu, dazed. Chang Jun? ? Chang Jun suddenly stood up, gestured to Fu Zicheng to continue, and swiftly left the room. Fu Zicheng, barely concealing his nervousness, whispered to Tu Nan. Did I say something wrong? Or did I just not perform well today? Tu Nan, called by name, finally snapped out of his reverie. Across from him sat the secretary, diligently recording meeting minutes, seemingly only concerned with matters of state and utterly oblivious to romantic entanglements, much to Tu Nan's frustration. Tu Nan belatedly asked, What did you say? Fu Zicheng. Asterisk, indeed. Was his performance that bad today? Asterisk, after replying to the message, Ruan Jiu Jiu continued to stare blankly at her computer. After a while, she received no response from Chang Jun. Surprised, she picked up her phone and saw two large characters, Inghal Fada Xinghal Fadia, to act cute/coy. Ruan Jiu Jiu. She meant to reply Xinghal Fadai Xinghal, Fadai dazed. It was the fault of the 26-key input method. Just as she was about to explain, her office door was suddenly pushed open. Boss Chang stood there, phone in hand, his expression as severe as if he were facing bankruptcy, or wearing a bright green hat. Why are you acting cute? For whom are you acting cute? What kind of cute are you acting? Ruan Jiu Jiu. Aren't you overreacting? I just accidentally typed the wrong character. Chungjun. Oh, you didn't really come all the way here for such a small thing, did you? Wait, aren't you in a meeting? Chungjun, one hand in his pocket, his gaze flitting about, his earlier imposing aura completely vanished. He said, the company is meeting to decide the next project, which Fu Ziqing is in charge of. And I've mostly understood the important details. We'll continue discussing when I go back, and once the discussion is over we'll go for Korean barbecue. We'll rest early tonight because we have important work tomorrow. Chungjun rattled this off without a breath, leaving Ruan Jiu Jiu wide-eyed. Wait, what was that last half-sentence? Chungjun paused, then continued airily, we'll rest early tonight. No, the sentence before that. Chungjun. I'm going back to the meeting. No barbecue? No barbecue. Chungjun was as compliant as a primary school student. Ruan Jiu Jiu watched him standing there as if being punished, his hoodie drooping, making him look utterly dejected. Ruan Jiu Jiu couldn't help but laugh, saying, barbecue it is then. It wasn't like they were starving themselves. Not every meal had to be perfectly healthy. Chungjun's eyes lit up. Later that evening after work, they arrived at the Korean barbecue restaurant. Ruan Jiu Jiu ordered a full beef set. Under Chungjun's expectant gaze, she also ordered 2 mushroom sets, 1 chicken breast, 1 kimchi fried rice, and several extra servings of lettuce. Ruan Jiu Jiu sincerely asked, enough greens? Chungjun quietly stood up. I need to use the restroom. All right. Ruan Jiu Jiu thought, asterisk with so much ordered, it should be more than enough for 2. You shouldn't eat too much for dinner. One must learn self-control. Asterisk Chungjun returned shortly and resumed his seat. Ruan Jiu Jiu poured a cup of barley tea, slowly sipping it when 2 waitstaff approached, cheering and applauding, startling Ruan Jiu Jiu. Ruan Jiu Jiu. Congratulations. You 2 are our 10,000th customers and have won our grand prize. Ruan Jiu Jiu watched wide-eyed as a small cart piled high with fresh red meat slices was wheeled over, overflowing. She looked utterly perplexed. There's such a good thing? She had no idea that some people would go to any lengths for food. The oil began to sizzle. Chungjun picked up a few slices of beef and placed them on the grill, emitting a delightful sizzling sound. The red meat instantly cooked. Paired with dipping sauce, kimchi, wrapped in lettuce and sent into the mouth, it was simply exquisite. Her phone suddenly chimed. Ruan Jiu Jiu picked it up, displaying Tu Nan's name. Tu Nan and Fu Ziqing were aimlessly wandering the streets, feeling dejected. Tu Nan suddenly thought that only a woman truly understood women. Perhaps seeking advice from his sister-in-law would smooth his path to love. He immediately messaged Ruan Jiu Jiu. Of course, if he could also snag a free dinner at her place, even better. Fu Ziqing's spirits lifted too. I want some of sister-in-law's cooking too. Like a pillow sent to someone sleepy, Ruan Jiu Jiu quickly replied. Chungjun and I are at a barbecue place. The restaurant gave us a lot of meat. Do you want to join us? Tu Nan. Send me the location, we'll be right there. Boss Chung, grilling meat, was very satisfied with his clever scheme, unaware of the impending doom. 10 minutes later. Tu Nan. Hee sister-in-law boss. Fu Ziqing. Hee sister-in-law boss. Chungjun, holding the tongs, looked at the 2 of them as if they were already dead. Hospital. Lying on the hospital bed, Father Chung was barely clinging to life, his face as pale as gold leaf. An oxygen mask covered his mouth, his eye sockets deeply sunken. In a short time, he had lost another 10 caddies, withered and skeletal. He lay motionless as if dead, enveloped in the pallor of a dying man. If Ruan Jiu Jiu saw him, she would surely be shocked. More than half of his hair was white. He looked nothing like a 50 or 60-year-old entrepreneur, but rather a 70 or 80-year-old decrepit man with one foot in the grave. Creaked, the door opened. Chu Wei gracefully walked to his bedside and stopped. Her hair was a wavy cascade, and she wore a mink coat adorned with jewelry, exuding an air of opulence. Her face was smooth and fair, and standing before Father Chung, she looked like his daughter. A young nurse followed her in. Chu Wei folded her arms, not bothering to hide the indifference on her face. How many more days can he live? The nurse was startled by her words. In the intensive care unit, she had witnessed countless partings, myriad emotions, but such utter apathy, even disdain, was rare. If the family is willing to pay for treatment, perhaps he could last a few more months. A few months, huh? Chu Wei's expression was thoughtful. She waved her hand, dismissing the nurse like a servant. Father Chung remained in a coma. Chu Wei lowered her voice. Now it depends on whether your son will save you. If he doesn't, you've been a truly failed father. She was now almost 90% certain that Chung Jun would give her money, and a substantial amount at that. Chu Wei was a smart woman. She understood that if she completely enraged Chung Jun, he had the means to make her disappear. It was simply that Chung Jun disdained to waste his time on her. Give her money and she'd leave. They would mutually benefit, ensuring each other's peace. Wouldn't that be a win-win? The thought that after her single phone call, Chung Jun and his wife not only remained indifferent but didn't even bother to send someone to inquire, gnawed at Chu Wei's teeth. If they wouldn't come to her, she would go to them. Meanwhile, Tu Nan and Fu Ziqing had feasted on a barbecue meal that cost well over 1,000 yuan. Ruan Jiu Jiu watched, stunned, and the waitstaff were equally dumbfounded. The restaurant staff, as if drawn by a spectacle, took turns enthusiastically grilling meat for them, almost neglecting the other customers. Ruan Jiu Jiu was full after less than half an hour. She silently watched the grown men devour their food, pondering a question. Did Tu Nan and his friend corrupt Chung Jun? Or did Chung Jun corrupt them? It was an absolute mystery. The plates on the table had been cleared multiple times. Ruan Jiu Jiu finally couldn't help but ask faintly, "Haven't you had enough yet?" The men, stared at by a chilling gaze, stiffened and slowly put down their chopsticks. "We're full." Tu Nan then remembered he was there to ask his sister-in-law for love advice. Just as the two were about to playfully joke with her, Chung Jun gave them a cold stare. The last time they were stared at like that, they had to work overtime several times, a memory still fresh in their minds. Fu Ziqing cleared his throat. "We should head back." Tu Nan. Exactly. Goodbye, sister-in-law." They parted ways at the hotel entrance. Ruan Jiu Jiu asked Chung Jun, amused, "Was the barbecue good?" Chung Jun honestly replied, "Delicious." An occasional indulgent meal could restore one's vitality. Such a life was probably simple and beautiful. Ruan Jiu Jiu, catching Chung Jun off guard, reached out and touched his abdomen, then exclaimed dramatically, "Wow, your stomach isn't even bloated. That's incredible." Chung Jun abruptly recoiled, retreating several meters from Ruan Jiu Jiu as if he'd seen a ghost. Ruan Jiu Jiu. Am I really that scary? Facing Ruan Jiu Jiu's bewildered surprise, Chung Jun silently pulled up the zipper of his jacket. When her fingers touched his flat stomach, it was as if an electric current had shot from the point of contact all the way to the top of his head. Even now, he felt a burning heat in the tips of his ears. Chung Jun regained his composure but maintained a distance of about a meter from Ruan Jiu Jiu. "Your fingers are so cold," he said. Ruan Jiu Jiu looked exasperated. "So that's why you acted like that." This scoundrel Chung Jun truly kept himself meticulously guarded at all times. They returned to their room to sleep. Ruan Jiu Jiu lay on the large bed, unable to fall asleep. She had probably eaten too much, and her mind was a jumble. She tossed and turned, lost in wild thoughts, gradually feeling drowsiness creep in. In her dream, Ruan Jiu Jiu experienced a terrifying scene. She dreamt she was merely a wisp of a soul, wandering through the city. From a distance, she heard a one-sided argument, sharp and piercing. Ruan Jiu Jiu involuntarily floated towards the sound, only to see Chu Wei and Chung Jun standing face to face. Chu Wei furiously pointed at him, demanding money. Chung Jun, hands in his pockets, looked as indifferent as the first time she met him. His gaze scattered, staring vaguely at some point. Chu Wei screamed herself hoarse, but Chung Jun remained unmoved. Chu Wei's expression grew increasingly twisted. Just then, a figure darted from the corner of the wall and lunged forward with a knife. Chung Jun's body trembled. He tried to grab his assailant but uncontrollably fell to the ground. A pool of crimson blood spread. Ruan Jiu Jiu was so terrified tears nearly fell. She rushed forward but grasped at nothing, only able to watch as the man on the ground slowly stopped breathing. Chung Jun! Chung Jun! Chung Jun! A warm hand clasped her flailing fingers, making Ruan Jiu Jiu suddenly open her eyes. Chung Jun, his hair messy from sleep, pulled her into his embrace. "What's wrong? What did you see? Why are you so scared?" Ruan Jiu Jiu woke up, her face pale with lingering fear, realizing it was merely a nightmare born of her anxious thoughts. She let out a long breath, her voice trembling. "Nothing, just a nightmare." Chung Jun hugged her. "Feeling better now?" Much better." Ruan Jiu Jiu relaxed her arms, recovering her composure. It was probably Chu Wei's call yesterday that had rekindled her worries. Fortunately, nothing had happened and she felt relieved. Due to the nightmare, Ruan Jiu Jiu felt a little listless all morning. She was distracted throughout the journey, not even noticing when Chung Jun stealthily held her pinky finger. The driver, waiting at a traffic light, accidentally caught a glimpse of this scene and suddenly felt a surge of emotion. The boss is truly henpecked. Even holding hands is done on the sly. Today, the company was calm and peaceful, everyone diligently working. Ruan Jiu Jiu was swamped, her pen flying across the page when someone sent her a message. Ruan Jiu Jiu thought it was Chung Jun calling her for lunch and pretended not to see it, continuing her work. She didn't want to face Chung Jun in the cafeteria and say weird things in public. According to Old Meng, some colleagues had drawn daily comics based on them, which were hugely popular both inside and outside the company. When Ruan Jiu Jiu finally saw the serialized comic, her face darkened, and she just wanted to drag out the culprit and confront them. How did she become a delicate little wife whimpering before a domineering CEO? Chung Jun was the one who should be the whimpering little wife. While Ruan Jiu Jiu was distracted, she copied the wrong layer and immediately, flustered, corrected it. Her phone rang again. Ruan Jiu Jiu irritably put down her pen, picked up her phone, and saw a text from an unknown number. "I'm Chu Wei, waiting for you at the company building. If you don't come out, I'll expose everything to everyone." "It's her again," Ruan Jiu Jiu frowned, wishing Chu Wei would stay as far away as possible. Trying to extort money while Father Chung was gravely ill. She was truly insane. It was uncertain who would expose whom. Chu Wei stood at the company entrance, anxiously waiting. She banked on it being broad daylight, believing Ruan Jiu Jiu wouldn't dare do anything to her. Moreover, Chu Wei touched her still flat stomach. This was her trump card. Chu Wei paced back and forth, but no one emerged for a long time. She grew more anxious. Strange, why hasn't Ruan Jiu Jiu come out yet? Did Chung Jun stop her? Are they really so confident she won't cause any trouble? Any issue with their reputation would be a major blow to them. Chu Wei relied on the advantage of public opinion and the ample time she had to wear them down. For the sake of the child, Chung Jun surely wouldn't do anything to her. Chung Jun was different from some of the ruthless, cunning, and shrewd bosses she had encountered. He was a man of greater principle, not easily swayed by fleeting desires, especially when it came to her. Otherwise, she wouldn't still be standing here now. Ruan Jiu Jiu sat in Chung Wan's office, observing him through the blurred glass. Chung Wan stood just outside the door, deep in conversation with a man she didn't recognize. His back was to her, so she could only see the man's head slightly bowed, his gaze not meeting Chung Wan's, nodding occasionally. Ruan Jiu Jiu, bored, propped her chin in her hand, thinking that Chung Wan truly looked the part of a CEO in this moment. When she first saw Chu Wei's message, her immediate reaction was to rush to Chung Wan with her phone. He had shown no expression, simply instructing her to sit and disregard the matter, before stepping out to make a call. Chung Wan was already handling Chu Wei. She was proving more impatient than he had anticipated. Before he could fully resolve everything, Chu Wei had once again bounced back, creating more trouble. If Ruan Jiu Jiu could have heard Chung Wan's voice, she would have noticed it was much lower than usual, stripped of its usual nonchalance, replaced with a hint of careless chill. "That's how it is." "Understood." Chung Wan pushed open the door and re-entered the office. Ruan Jiu Jiu was perched in his seat, glancing around, relishing in the boss's exclusive domain. Hearing him enter, she asked, "Is it handled?" Chung Wan replied, Phew, that's good." Recalling the scene from her dream still sent shivers down Ruan Jiu Jiu's spine. Regardless of whether Chung Wan had met an untimely end in her past life, or if Chu Wei was truly the culprit, it instinctively made her want to keep Chung Wan far away from Chu Wei. That woman was far too greedy. Give her what she wanted, and she would only grow more reckless and brazen with every advantage gained. Ruan Jiu Jiu sighed. Why are you so easily bullied? Even a mere stepmother could ride roughshod over him. If Chungwan hadn't refused Ruan Jiu Jiu's eager offer to intervene, citing his unwillingness for her to get entangled in such messy affairs, Ruan Jiu Jiu would have truly loved to teach that shameless stepmother a proper lesson. To Ruan Jiu Jiu, Chungwan was like a poor, pathetic little cabbage. Little cabbage Chungwan. If Ruan Jiu Jiu knew what Chungwan had just arranged, she would surely retract her words. Chu Wei, brimming with anticipation, awaited the money she believed was hers. She paced back and forth downstairs, growing increasingly agitated. Why hadn't Chungwan come to find her yet? A well-dressed, refined man in a suit emerged from the entrance of Jiaqing Company. Chu Wei recognized him, of course. It was young Fan, who had previously handled her father-in-law's hospitalization, with whom they had interacted before. Young Fan pushed up his glasses and approached. Chu Wei instinctively forced a sheepish smile. Where's Chungwan? I have something to discuss with him. The boss is too busy with work, so he asked me to handle it. You're not going to try to scare me off again like last time. Not giving me a single cent, are you? Chu Wei immediately recalled when her father-in-law was first hospitalized. They had only reimbursed the hospital fees, leaving her without even a penny's worth of advantage. Young Fan smiled benignly. How could we? Not only would she not get a single cent, but she would have to cough up her own money too. Chu Wei remained vigilant. That expression on young Fan's face always made her feel like she might not get a good outcome. She gritted her teeth and said, Call Chungwan. I have something I absolutely must tell him. Young Fan replied, Please tell me whatever you need to say and I will relay it to him. This is our family matter. I am his stepmother. Chu Wei's voice rose, drawing the gazes of passers-by. As if emboldened, Chu Wei confidently clutched her abdomen and declared, I'm pregnant. This is Chungwan's sibling after all. He can't possibly abandon me, can he? Young Fan's expression shifted. A child. Chu Wei narrowed her eyes coldly, her chin lifted in apparent triumph. This time I have a reason. As his stepmother, shouldn't he as my stepson support me? Once my husband passes, I'll be left all alone. Young Fan pushed up his glasses. All right, I understand. I promise if you give me the money, I will absolutely not bother you again. Young Fan said, I need to go check on Uncle Cheng's condition first. You know, although the boss seems indifferent to his father on the surface, he's actually very concerned about him and will surely soften. Chu Wei, as if reassured, quickly said, Then let's go together. I'll accompany you. Thinking of his boss's words, young Fan smiled. Ruan Jiu Jiu sat in Chungwan's office, unable to resist asking him, What are you going to do? Chungwan, hands in his pockets, leisurely walked to the chair opposite her and sat down. Lunch at the cafeteria? Or should we go out? I'm talking about something serious. I want sushi. Ruan Jiu Jiu. Alright, if Chungwan didn't want to talk about it, she wouldn't press. Chungwan ordered takeout for lunch, and they ate together in the office. Under Ruan Jiu Jiu's supervision, he couldn't order too much sushi. After finishing their meal, he started munching on an apple, making crunchy sounds. In Chu Wei's imagination, Chungwan and his wife were probably frantic, busy figuring out how to deal with her. If she knew they were enjoying a delightful lunch, she'd likely be furious. Chu Wei followed young Fan to the hospital. Young Fan first went to check on her father-in-law's condition, communicating with the doctor for a moment while Chu Wei waited patiently. After young Fan emerged from the ward, he said, Since the situation is verified, we won't waste any time. Please go for a paternity test first. Chu Wei was stunned. What? You didn't think the boss would need no proof, did you? Given your less than stellar credibility, I will accompany you throughout this paternity test. Cold sweat broke out on Chu Wei's forehead. Could it be that Chungwan had discovered she wasn't carrying her father-in-law's child? Luckily, she had two plans in place, prepared for Chungwan to investigate her pregnancy. On the surface, she bit her lip anxiously, feigning reluctance to go with young Fan for the paternity test. I don't care. If you want me to do a paternity test, you must first sign the contract and give me the money. Young Fan disagreed, and Chu Wei started to make a scene. He rubbed his temples, a headache brewing, then turned to make a call to Chang Wan. After a moment, young Fan returned with his phone and nodded to Chu Wei. The boss said yes. Chu Wei breathed a sigh of relief. She had already colluded with the doctor, so the paternity test results would undoubtedly show the child was her father-in-law's. She just had to wait for the money. Young Fan smiled slightly. Madam, would you prefer cash or a property? A property, of course. Chu Wei's friend had already scouted out a new development for her. Adjacent to a wealthy district, with beautiful scenery, a prime location and spacious layouts. Her eyes had turned green when she saw the property, but the current situation was that everyone was scrambling for units. Let alone buying, there wasn't even a way in. Chu Wei had long set her sights on this property, just waiting for Chang Wan to take the bait. The housing prices weren't too expensive yet, but her friend who worked in real estate said they would rise again next week. Now was the perfect time to buy. Chu Wei was already envisioning her glorious dream of becoming a wealthy woman. Young Fan standing opposite her smiled faintly. Then shall we sign the contract first? Yes, yes, yes. Before work ended that afternoon, Ruan Jiu Jiu suddenly received a message from Ruan Jiu Jiu. I'm getting married next month. Ruan Jiu Jiu was surprised at first, then quickly congratulated her. That's wonderful. If you have time, you absolutely must come. No problem. Time flew by so quickly. Just last time Bai Long was discussing engagement plans, and now she was preparing for marriage. Bai Long asked several detailed questions, wanting Ruan Jiu Jiu's opinion. Ruan Jiu Jiu, having no idea what a wedding scene looked like, slipped into Chang Wan's office to find him. Chang Wan was reading, and as Ruan Jiu Jiu opened the door, he swiftly tucked his pen and book into a cabinet and locked it. Ruan Jiu Jiu didn't miss his every move. Her expression was suspicious. What are you doing? Chang Wan acted very calmly, diverting her attention. What's wrong? Oh, nothing. Bai Long is getting married and asked me some details I wasn't clear about, so I came to ask you. Since confessing her identity as a little fairy, Ruan Jiu Jiu no longer needed to hide things she didn't know. Ruan Jiu Jiu said, You must remember, right? No idea. Huh. We just registered. Didn't do anything else. Is that so? So Chang Wan, like her, hadn't actually experienced anything about a wedding. The old married couple looked at each other speechless. Ruan Jiu Jiu couldn't believe they were both completely clueless about marriage. Alright, I'll reply to Bai Long then. Ruan Jiu Jiu laboriously searched for answers on Baidu, and after a long search, sent Bai Long a few suggestions. Whether they would be useful or not was beyond her concern. Chang Wan watched her meticulously browse photos of others in wedding dresses. Ruan Jiu Jiu was very serious and didn't forget to point to Chang Wan. Look, isn't this one beautiful? The bride is so pretty. Ruan Jiu Jiu had never worn a wedding dress, though she had been a bridesmaid. Seeing others' wedding photos, she naturally found them beautiful. However, for her, the wedding was a thing of the past and seemed less important. Chang Wan's expression was thoughtful. Just then his phone vibrated. It was Young Fan. Young Fan, boss, the paternity test has been done. Chang Wan, good. A few days of peaceful life had almost made Ruan Jiu Jiu forget about Chu Wei. Chu Wei hadn't caused any trouble, probably because Chang Wan had found a way to send her off. Ruan Jiu Jiu curiously asked Chang Wan, How did you deal with Chu Wei? Chang Wan slowly said, Gave her a house. Ah, I knew it. Ruan Jiu Jiu was actually quite unwilling to let Chu Wei get away with a profit. But then she thought if it was money spent for peace, it might not be a bad thing. She could still recall that terrifying dream. If Chu Wei in a fit of rage were to do something to harm Chang Wan, no amount of money could ever bring him back. Chang Wan wasn't short on this bit of money, and if it meant they could have peace, he wouldn't contend with Chu Wei any longer. Ruan Jiu Jiu grumbled. Alright, I'll respect your decision. As long as she doesn't stir up trouble. Chang Wan sat on the sofa eating nuts. A large gift bag of nuts Ruan Jiu Jiu had bought. Perfect for nutritional supplements. A small amount each day was just right, but she watched, dismayed, as Chang Wan, when she wasn't looking, finished an entire bag of pecans, and she quickly intervened with a dark expression. Eat less. Chang Wan munched on snacks like a squirrel, making crunching sounds, nodding in response while casually pouring a handful of crab-flavored melon seeds into his mouth. Ooh! Unable to stop him, Ruan Jiu Jiu wistfully asked, "Oh, by the way, do you know how shelled melon seeds are made?" Chungwan. Old grandmas with no teeth laboriously crack them one by one with their mouths, so you should eat them slowly and cherish their hard work. Chungwan. Although he knew that shelled melon seeds were now machine processed, Ruan Jiu Jiu's words somehow made him feel queasy. Chungwan silently put down the bag of crab-flavored melon seeds. Ruan Jiu Jiu smiled. Isn't that better? The two coexisted peacefully for a moment. Chungwan looked at his phone and casually mentioned, "You're attending a wedding next month?" Ruan Jiu Jiu was surprised by Chungwan's question, not expecting him to remember this. There was less than 2 weeks until next month. Bai Long was particularly regretful that Ruan Jiu Jiu was already married and couldn't be her bridesmaid, but she enthusiastically invited Ruan Jiu Jiu to her wedding. Ruan Jiu Jiu always went to work and came home with Chungwan every day, and her circle of friends was sparse. Having a friend like Bai Long, who had always been warm and friendly to her, made Ruan Jiu Jiu very happy. She wasn't good at handling intimate relationships, but fortunately, the people she met were all good. Ruan Jiu Jiu said, "Yes, what about it?" Chungwan slowly oat. "It's a daily communication task." Ruan Jiu Jiu. "Are you treating me like an NPC to level up and gain experience points?" While they were talking on the other side, Chu Wei patiently waited for several days and finally received the paternity test results. The report stated that the child was her father-in-law's. Chu Wei, beaming, showed the paternity test to Young Fan. Young Fan, with a look of helplessness and reluctance, took the report and said, "Then let's pick a day to sign the agreement." Chu Wei quickly interjected, "Why wait? How about today?" Since Chu Wei suggested signing the contract today, Young Fan didn't hesitate. He pulled out his phone to call his lawyer. Chu Wei waited patiently for a while, and soon the lawyer arrived with the contract. To ensure she wouldn't lose out, Chu Wei also called her own lawyer, who meticulously reviewed it for loopholes. Finally, the contract was finalized. Chu Wei held the contract and slyly added another condition. "If you're willing to give me another 2 million now, I'll divorce his father." Her father-in-law's properties were sold, his company was bankrupt, and profits were continuously declining. She didn't want to be left with debt after he died. She had a good plan. Compared to having Chu Wei accrue debt and then harass Chungwan would certainly choose to use a paltry sum like 2 million to silence her and keep her out of his life. The sudden price hike and added condition made Young Fan's expression difficult. "You just tell me if it can be done." "It's hard to say. I'll call the boss first." Young Fan hesitated for a while, and just as Chu Wei was losing her patience, he finally nodded. The lawyer immediately took out his laptop and redrafted the contract with the additional condition. Chu Wei saw the 3 large characters for 2 million written on it, her eyes filled with money. Chu Wei signed happily, hugging the contract as if it were a treasure. The property they promised her, Young Fan said, would be hers in a couple of days, and they would contact her by phone then. Assuming he couldn't escape, Chu Wei relaxed and clicked her heels into her father-in-law's ward. The fact that the child wasn't her father-in-law's was a secret known only to Chu Wei and her lover, but for the sake of money, after conferring with her lover, she told him to remain calm for now. Her lover had been suppressed by her father-in-law years ago, and had always harbored resentment. If he knew he had fathered Chu Wei's child, he would have long since been unable to resist informing her father-in-law, aiming to literally anger him to death. Chu Wei, taking advantage of her father-in-law's severe illness and inability to speak, had managed to cover up everything. The timing of her pregnancy coincided with when her father-in-law was brought home to recuperate, and once Chu Wei's pregnancy news leaked, rumors spread that her father-in-law was still robust in old age. It was her father-in-law who had witnessed Chu Wei and her lover intimately on the upper floor, which had caused him to instantly collapse in anger, leading to the explosive onset of various ailments. Let alone speaking, it was a blessing if he could even open his eyes. Chu Wei entered the ward. Her father-in-law slowly opened his tired eyes, only to see Chu Wei gracefully approaching, her figure gradually growing larger in his hazy vision. A piece of paper fluttered before him. Chu Wei smiled faintly. "Did you see? The alimony your good son gave me, this house with the price increase will be worth tens of millions." Her father-in-law's eyes widened abruptly, and he let out a harsh, guttural sound, but he couldn't speak. His face turned crimson from holding his breath, looking as if he would be angered to death, making Chu Wei almost laugh aloud. You can die of anger. Once you're dead, your filial son can pay off your debts for you. This old lady is divorcing you. Go play by yourself. By the way, your son probably doesn't care about this little money at all. Well, he's a big boss, and you're just a broken-down old man. Ho ho, her father-in-law, who had just been rescued, almost went into the emergency room again. Chu Wei, with the contract in hand, didn't care about her father-in-law's life or death. All she wanted to do now was enjoy herself, indulge in materialism, and wait to return and collect her house and money. Life couldn't be more wonderful. At the same moment, at the boss's instruction, young Fan paid a visit. If Chu Wei had been present, she would have been greatly alarmed, never imagining they would track down her lover. The middle-aged man sat in a chair, legs crossed, his paunch evident, exuding a shrewd and vulgar businessman's air. A cigar was clasped between his fingers as he eyed young Fan. What's wrong? Afraid I'll expose his stepmother's infidelity and diminish his prestige. Young Fan pushed up his glasses, maintaining a refined demeanor. You misunderstand. I saw that Mrs. Chu was about to abscond, so I came to remind you. He handed over a paternity test report. Under the man's gaze, which was half suspicious and half scornful, young Fan politely said, The doctor is one of our own, so there's no faking it. Mrs. Chu is pregnant, and a house, even if it's not a reward for merit, is compensation for her efforts. What? The cigar in his hand forgotten, the man snatched the paternity test. His face instantly contorted into a greasy mess of anger. The thought of Chu Wei enjoying herself with his money, and his own foolish deception, made him so furious he became verbally abusive. Damn it! This cuckolding was truly a green grassland. He stormed off to confront Chu Wei. Young Fan watched his retreating back and messaged his boss. Boss, next step. Chungwan. Chungwan's computer displayed some wedding dress photos, which he quickly dismissed one by one. Ruan Jiu Jiu finished a segment of work and finally took a short break. She leaned back in her soft chair, scrolling through her feed. With a swipe of her finger, she was inundated with wedding dress photos? Ruan Jiu Jiu indignantly thought that search engines were becoming increasingly shameless. She had only glanced at wedding photos on another browser, and now they were seemingly stealing her browsing information to push ads? Ruan Jiu Jiu initially planned to dismiss them one by one, but then she suddenly saw a stunning wedding dress. It was strapless, sleeveless, with a cinched waist, and a long flowing train, a pure and flawless white. Ruan Jiu Jiu's eyes lit up, and curiosity urged her to click further. This led to an endless scroll of wedding dresses, one after another, leaving Ruan Jiu Jiu dazzled. They were all so beautiful. They made her want to get married. Oh wait, she was already married. Mrs. Cheng's face was etched with gloom. Unknowingly, time slipped away as she browsed various images. When Ruan Jiu Jiu checked the time, she was shocked to realize that 2 or 3 hours had passed. She still had work to do. Just as she was about to close her phone, Ruan Jiu Jiu glanced at Weibo and discovered a trending topic that had exploded. #man violently beats woman on the spot. The photos and videos were blurry. Others might not recognize her, but Ruan Jiu Jiu could never forget Chu Wei's face. Ruan Jiu Jiu? That's not right. Wasn't Chu Wei extorting money? Why was she suddenly being beaten by another man, her lover at that? The arguments about domestic violence in the comments section reached a fever pitch, with people cursing the man, the woman, feminists, male chauvinists, the country, the Women's Federation. Clicking anywhere revealed shocking exclamation points. Then someone revealed that the man's identity was actually the CEO of Dazhong Technology Company. He had a wife, and the bitch he was cursing for cuckolding him made it clear to anyone with eyes to see. This CEO was truly wronged. Not only did his mistress cheat on him, but he unexpectedly ended up on a hot search without even knowing it. The man's identity was thoroughly exposed, and a bunch of busybodies flocked to the company's official Weibo, leaving a sea of green emojis, which was both ridiculous and frustrating. In the video, Chu Wei was slapped several times, crying pitifully and trying to explain, but the man wouldn't listen. In a fit of rage, they got into a brawl and the scene was quite awful. Ruan Jiu Jiu watched in confusion, not understanding what had happened to Chu Wei. Ruan Jiu Jiu couldn't resist sending Chengwan a message. "What's going on with Chu Wei?" Chengwan replied quickly. "I don't know." Good. Ruan Jiu Jiu thought that Chu Wei had probably done too many bad things, and now karma was coming back to bite her. Chu Wei had not expected to be enjoying herself one moment, and then suddenly be beaten by her lover, who demanded she return his money. Furious and relying on her impending millions in property, she immediately pushed back against her lover and severed ties with him. She had never intended to raise the child anyway, so this was perfect. She would live lavishly as a wealthy woman, never worrying about food or clothing again. To ensure the child's paternity remained untraceable, Chu Wei, after dealing with her lover, had an abortion without any hesitation. The next day, she received her money and house, practically overjoyed. Just then, Chu Wei's friend in real estate messaged her. "Wei, I have a bigger house here. Do you want to switch? Time is urgent. I'm only giving you a few hours to decide. It's only 2 million more for a luxurious unit, dozens of square meters larger." Chu Wei's eyes lit up, then widened with ecstasy. Wasn't this a godsend delivered right to her doorstep? Yes, save it for me. She didn't have over 1 million yuan on hand, having spent almost everything, but she could take out a loan, sell and mortgage some things, and she'd have it back in no time. To celebrate her imminent promotion to a top-tier wealthy woman, Chu Wei went drinking with a group of friends, treating them all. Drunk for a day and a night, Chu Wei finally crawled out of bed, swayed as she pulled on her clothes and stumbled out. She tried to call her best friend but couldn't get through. Chu Wei frantically called the number, unable to believe it. Before long, a gentle tone indicated that the other person's phone was off. Chu Wei grew anxious and quickly hailed a taxi to the location of the property. Her frantic figure drew the attention of the security guards, who stopped her. "Where are you going?" "I'm going to see my friend. I bought a unit here. I'm an owner." The guards exchanged glances, as if they had seen a madwoman. "I'm sorry, madam. This building is an unfinished project. It ran out of funds long ago and quality issues were exposed. The investors either ran off or owe many people's salaries. Everything inside has been stripped, and almost all the rebar has been stolen. We're just here to patrol. There's no way anyone could sell you a house. This building has been abandoned for at least several months." Chu Wei's heart sank heavily, pulling her down. She and her best friend had pulled off many scams together, and both were experts at cheating others. Chu Wei had always trusted her best friend implicitly. She never imagined that the only person she trusted would actually betray her. Chu Wei's vision blurred. She recalled that after she had mentioned to her best friend a while ago that she was about to make a fortune, her friend had constantly introduced her to this property. She had somehow gotten a bunch of people and information, completely fooling Chu Wei. She had been swindled out of every last penny. The thought of her enormous sum of money going down the drain made her want to hit her head against a wall and die. She tremblingly slapped herself, then collapsed onto the ground amidst the shocked gazes of the security guards. Madam! Perhaps it was the recent surge of wedding dresses, but Ruan Jiu Jiu found that whatever app she used, it would push information about wedding dresses to her, making her almost suspect her phone was infected with a virus. Ruan Jiu Jiu was both annoyed and felt an indescribable complexity of emotions. She glanced sideways at Chengwan. Chengwan had never worn a suit in front of her. She wondered if he looked presentable when dressed in formal attire. Speaking of suits reminded her of weddings, and speaking of weddings reminded her of the wedding night. Ahem. What was she fantasizing about? Chengwan was looking down at his phone, saying without lifting his head, "You're peeking at me." Caught red-handed, Ruan Jiu Jiu gave an awkward hum. "You're overthinking it." To appear more natural, she picked up a strawberry cream cake from the table, took a fork and scooped a bite. The sweet, cool cream melted on her tongue, and Ruan Jiu Jiu took another bite. Chengwan, at some unknown moment, had turned into a ghost, silently floating beside her. Ruan Jiu Jiu was startled. With a spoonful of cream on her fork, she asked, "What are you doing?" Chengwan leaned his hand on the back of the sofa, gradually moving closer to Ruan Jiu Jiu. His gaze focused on Ruan Jiu Jiu's soft lips, his eyelids lowered, his eyes sparkling with captivating light. Ruan Jiu Jiu tensed up, her cheeks flushed, and she half closed her eyes, waiting for Chengwan to kiss her. So what if he took advantage of her? Besides, with Chungwan's face, it was hard to say who was taking advantage of whom. Ruan Jiu Jiu waited for a moment, but instead of a kiss, she heard Chungwan's muffled question beside her ear. Why are you closing your eyes? Ruan Jiu Jiu. Question mark. Chungwan. Question mark. She opened her eyes, only to see that the piece of cream cake on her fork was gone. Gone. So this scoundrel Chungwan was just trying to steal a bite of cake. Certainly. Here's a romantic, flowing, and clear translation of the Chinese text into English. Ruan Jiu Jiu, consumed by embarrassment and anger, longed to send Chang Jun flying with a single punch. It was only after enduring that punch that Chang Jun finally ceased his mischievous antics. He slumped beside her, looking dejected, and meekly said, I'm sorry. I won't steal food next time. At his words, Ruan Jiu Jiu's cheeks burned even brighter. Chang Jun could never have guessed that her mortification stemmed from an entirely different reason. As she silently grappled with her emotions, Chang Jun, sitting quietly beside her, paused for a moment before calling her name. Jiu Jiu. What do you want? Ruan Jiu Jiu looked at him, her voice trailing off in a huff. Her lingering protest vanished, however, in the space of a kiss. Chang Jun yearned to go further, to press the soft, yielding Ruan Jiu Jiu back into the sofa, oblivious even to the strawberry cake tumbling to the floor. Ruan Jiu Jiu in a daze mused, how could Chang Jun, usually so meticulous even when eating, become so intent on devouring her when he kissed her? Then Chang Jun's phone rang. He impatiently pressed to silence it, but before long it rang out once more. The insistent chime jolted Ruan Jiu Jiu from her disoriented state. She suddenly realized that, at some point, Chang Jun had unbuttoned the top of her blouse, revealing a sliver of delicate, snow-white skin that stirred the imagination. Flushing scarlet, she hastily pushed Chang Jun away and tidied her clothes. When Chang Jun finally answered the call, his voice was so cold it startled assistant Fan on the other end. Gone was Fan's usual composure when dealing with Chu Wei. He spoke cautiously. Boss, old Mr. Chung has woken up and wishes to see you one last time. His condition isn't good. I don't think he has much time left. Chang Jun remained silent upon hearing the news. Should I make arrangements? Assistant Fan asked. Still Chang Jun offered no reply. Ruan Jiu Jiu, sensing his distress, lowered her voice and asked, What's wrong? Has something happened? After a long pause, Chang Jun slowly said, I might have to go to the hospital. Ruan Jiu Jiu blinked, her mind immediately jumping to his father. Instead of voicing her suspicions, she softened her tone and said, I'll go with you. Chang Jun did not refuse, which meant he agreed. They took a taxi to the hospital. Chang Jun remained utterly silent throughout the ride, but Ruan Jiu Jiu gently squeezed his hand in reassurance. He turned his face to her, saying, It's nothing. Don't worry. I know. Upon their arrival at the hospital, a refined man carrying a briefcase stood by the entrance. Seeing Chang Jun and Ruan Jiu Jiu, he respectfully addressed them as boss and madam. Ruan Jiu Jiu felt rather awkward being called that, and couldn't help but clear her throat. Reaching the ward, Ruan Jiu Jiu instinctively paused. Chang Jun turned, glanced at her, and then reached out to take her pinky finger, gently pulling her inside. There's nothing shameful here. Pulled into the room, Ruan Jiu Jiu felt a little uneasy. Mr. Chung lay on the hospital bed, which had been slightly raised so he could sit up a little. In what seemed like a fleeting surge of energy, his eyes sparkled with a clarity that made him appear even more spirited than he had a year or two ago. Yet when he spoke, his hoarse voice betrayed his true condition. I thought you wouldn't come to see me. Chang Jun remained unmoved by his words, his face devoid of any discernible emotion. He gazed at his biological father with the detached indifference one might show a complete stranger. Mr. Chung tugged at his lips, forcing a smile that was uglier than a cry. I hear. You're the one who cleaned up my mess. He spoke with effort, gasping for breath every few words, yet he stubbornly pressed on. Ever since you started high school, I had such high hopes for you. I thought you'd inherit the family business, but I never imagined, you useless fellow, that you'd have absolutely no interest. Worthless, good for nothing. I called you names for over 10 years. Mr. Chung chuckled bitterly. 10 years. Ever since Chang Jun's mother passed away, They had become little more than distant strangers, rarely even contacting each other during holidays. Just then, a commotion erupted outside the door. It was clearly Chu Wei. She was being blocked from entering but refused to give up. Chang Jun turned and opened the door directly. Chu Wei's furious expression froze the instant she saw him, her disheveled hair making her appear comical and pathetic. Tears welled in Chu Wei's eyes, and she collapsed to her knees with a thud. "It's my fault. Please forgive me. I didn't mean it." All her money was gone. How was she supposed to live? Mr. Chung, lying in bed, watched her pitiable and detestable display and laughed heartily. His laughter turned into a cough. You. Cough, cough, cough. You have your day too." Chu Wei suppressed her anger, playing the victim. "I'll take care of him. I'll take care of him, if only you'd consider our marriage." Chang Jun's voice was unhurried and calm. "First, focus on paying back the money." Chu Wei froze. Wait. Chang Jun knows everything. Her head buzzed as she stared, disbelieving. Before she could react, several security guards grabbed her from behind and dragged her out the door. Chu Wei screamed in defiance. "I'm your mother too. You can't treat me like this." "Chang Jun." Medical staff in the hallway whispered amongst themselves. "That woman's lost her mind. She must be insane." Silence descended upon the ward once more. Mr. Chung finished laughing and coughing, his voice hoarse. You've grown powerful. You know how to deal with people now." Chang Jun stood with one hand in his pocket, his face expressionless as he gazed at his father, utterly silent. With death drawing near, his wife having abandoned him, and his son unwilling to acknowledge him, Mr. Chung let out a low, bitter laugh. He knew it was all his own doing, that he had no one to blame but himself. If not for his affair, if not for his wife's unfortunate accident, perhaps he would now have a warm, harmonious family, instead of lying in a hospital bed with no one to visit him. He remembered when Chang Jun first started elementary school. They had been a happy family. His wife would prepare him cakes, and Chang Jun would give him his handmade models, so intricate they didn't seem like a child's work. Back then, he thought he was the happiest man in the world. Later, as he made more money, he fell in with a crowd of pleasure seekers and became utterly lost. When the model on the shelf accidentally fell and shattered one day, he didn't care. Just like with his family, his concern became a pretense. Later, he lost everything. There was no one left even to claim his body. Mr. Chung slowly raised a trembling hand to cover his face, a mixture of desolation and shame churning in his heart. Through his fingers he wept sorrowfully, crying like a child. "I'm sorry." The ward was quiet, save for Mr. Cheng's broken sobs. But to whom those apologies were directed, no one knew. Returning home from the hospital, Chang Jun didn't utter a single word along the way. Ruan Jiu Jiu stole several glances at him. Once inside, she changed her shoes and softly asked, "Do you want anything to eat? Are you hungry?" Though Chang Jun appeared outwardly calm, he was clearly deeply saddened. A common trait for reserved individuals. Even a passionate eater would likely lose their appetite at such a moment, and Ruan Jiu Jiu regretted her question as soon as she spoke it. She understood Chang Jun's feelings. What he needed now was probably space to be alone and quiet. How could he possibly be thinking about food? "Noodle soup," Chang Jun said. "Ruan Jiu Jiu." "What?" Chang Jun's tone was unusually firm and solemn. "With 2 eggs." Ruan Jiu Jiu was speechless. Noodles are noodles and eggs are eggs. One needs to replenish their energy after all. As the noodles tumbled in boiling water, she silently waited for them to cook, unaware that Chang Jun was leaning against the refrigerator, quietly watching her cook. Ruan Jiu Jiu poached 3 eggs for Chang Jun. She had no appetite herself and only prepared his meal. The noodle soup was placed on the table. Chang Jun quietly ate his noodles while Ruan Jiu Jiu sat opposite him, propping her chin in her hand, idly surveying the kitchen. She wanted to find a topic of conversation but couldn't think of a suitable opening. One ate noodles, the other pretended to be lost in thought. After a few bites, Chang Jun suddenly stood up. Ruan Jiu Jiu looked up, startled. "What's wrong? Is the soup not right?" Under her bewildered gaze, Chang Jun retrieved a bowl, returned to his seat, picked out a chopstick full of noodles and an egg, then poured some soup before placing the bowl in front of Ruan Jiu Jiu. Eat. In that instant, Ruan Jiu Jiu was moved. Chang-jun was actually sharing his food with her? It was like snatching food from the jaws of a fierce dog, more precious than a prodigal son returning home. Ruan Jiu Jiu was so touched she nearly cried. For this moment of warmth, she truly wanted to devote herself to studying the art of preparing a Manchu Han imperial feast. Chang-jun slowly said, "Oh right. Ruan Jiu Jiu? Question mark. This is what you owe me. Remember to pay it back next time." He gestured to Ruan Jiu Jiu's noodles with his chin. Ruan Jiu Jiu was speechless. Asterisk, what, did a single taste make it hers? This dog-like man truly was a dog-like man. Asterisk, this is my good noodle soup. You ate a bite, so it's yours. Ruan Jiu Jiu retorted. Chang-jun, though logically unsound, was perfectly confident. Yes. Ruan Jiu Jiu. That's robber's logic. Chang-jun pointed to the poached egg he had taken a bite of. Mine. Then he pointed to Ruan Jiu Jiu, whom he had kissed several times. Mine. Ruan Jiu Jiu first blinked in astonishment, then realized the meaning of Chang-jun's words. Her face flushed a fiery red. She feigned composure and glared at him. Shut up. Don't talk while eating. Thanks to that little interlude, the warm atmosphere returned to its usual rhythm, easing Ruan Jiu Jiu's tension somewhat. Chang-jun, as always, finished his noodles and slowly began to clear the dishes for washing. He placed the bowls in the sink, put on a pink apron, and stood with his head bowed, lost in thought for a long moment. Ruan Jiu Jiu pursed her lips and walked up to him. If you don't want to wash them, just leave them. Chang-jun turned, opened his arms and mumbled, "Hug me." Ruan Jiu Jiu's heart softened. She wrapped her arms around his waist and buried her face in his chest. Her cheek pressed against the soft fabric of his hoodie, and she could faintly feel his warm body. Chang-jun slowly closed his arms, pulling her into his embrace. They held each other in silence for a long time, so long that Ruan Jiu Jiu's legs almost went numb. Finally, Ruan Jiu Jiu couldn't hold back. "Let go." "No," declared the human superglue known as Chang-jun. Ruan Jiu Jiu. "You let go first." "Oh, I need to use the restroom." Chang-jun. "I'll go with you." "Do you want to die?" Their affectionate bickering ended there. Mr. Cheng's health was deteriorating day by day. Even with expensive medications and expert treatment, the rapid decline of his bodily functions could not be stopped. All he could do now was try to enjoy his remaining time. He didn't demand that Chang-jun stay with him. More than a decade of indifference separated them, a gap that a mere apology could not bridge. Both father and son understood this perfectly. Ruan Jiu Jiu knew that their visit to the hospital would be their last with Mr. Chang. Chang-jun would absolutely not return to that hospital again. She lay in bed wide awake, another difficult night stretching ahead. Ruan Jiu Jiu stared at the ceiling, lost in thought. Chu Wei had tried to get money but failed. Now she was bankrupt and had to repay debts. Ruan Jiu Jiu couldn't help but recall her dream. In that dream, Chu Wei was unilaterally pleading with Chang-jun, but he remained unmoved, until she began to beg, then grew angry, and then a figure rushed forward, stabbed Chang-jun and fled in haste. She clutched her chest, feeling uneasy. No, could that dream be a premonition, showing her how Chang-jun died in their previous life? The word death hovered over Ruan Jiu Jiu like a shadow. Ever since Su Bai had spoken her cursed prophecy, Ruan Jiu Jiu had been filled with anxiety. Chu Wei was a ticking time bomb, and without knowing her movements, Ruan Jiu Jiu couldn't truly relax. Knock, knock, knock. A sudden knocking broke the silence in the room, making Ruan Jiu Jiu jump. Chang-jun's slow voice drifted from outside the door. "Are you asleep?" "Ruan Jiu Jiu. What do you want?" Chang-jun. "The air conditioner in my room is broken, it's so cold." The air conditioner was broken? But spring was well underway, and they were almost ready to wear lighter clothes. How could he be cold, especially under a blanket? Ruan Jiu Jiu sat up and opened the bedroom door. Chang-jun stood there, clutching a blanket, looking small, pitiful and helpless, silently gazing at her. He breathed out a puff of air and said, "It's so cold. Your matchstick boy Junjun is online." Ruan Jiu Jiu blocked him at the door. "Go back. No snuggling in my bed." Chang-jun's face was filled with innocence, as if Ruan Jiu Jiu were being utterly unreasonable. I won't snuggle in your bed, I'll snuggle on your bed. Isn't that the same thing? Chung Jun clutched his blanket tighter, pointed at the bed. Mine. Then pointed at Ruan Jiu Jiu. Mine. Ruan Jiu Jiu was speechless. They were at a stalemate. Chung Jun was like a homeless stray dog, staring longingly at Ruan Jiu Jiu. Ruan Jiu Jiu steeled her heart and closed the door, telling him through it to go back to his study to sleep. There were no footsteps outside, as if no one were there, only silent stillness. Ruan Jiu Jiu thought that if she left Chung Jun for a while, he would give up and go back to his room to sleep. Sleeping together suddenly felt strange to Ruan Jiu Jiu. She had never shared a bed with anyone her entire life, except for dormitory living at school. Ruan Jiu Jiu sat on the bed and deliberately said loudly, I'm going to sleep now. Good night. Chung Jun outside the door was silent, not responding. 1 minute passed. 2 minutes. 5 minutes. Ruan Jiu Jiu couldn't lie still anymore. She sighed inwardly, knowing that Chung Jun was likely banking on her soft heart, that she couldn't resist a gentle plea. Yet, she truly couldn't bring herself to let him stand by the door indefinitely. It was as if Chung Jun truly were a pitiful stray dog, waiting for her to adopt him. Ruan Jiu Jiu got out of bed, annoyed, and pushed open the door. Sure enough, Chung Jun was still standing there, his posture exactly as it had been when she closed the door. Seeing the door open, his eyes lit up, and he looked at her pitifully, clutching his blanket. Ruan Jiu Jiu gritted her teeth. Heaven knew how devastating Chung Jun's expression was when he wore that beautiful face. Even a heart of stone would surely yield. If Ruan Jiu Jiu hadn't still had some pride, she would have rushed forward to hug and comfort him. No, she couldn't spoil him. Some people would just take an inch and demand a mile, stepping on stilts all the way to heaven. Ruan Jiu Jiu said expressionlessly, we have an agreement. I sleep on the left, you sleep on the right. I get 60%, you get 40%. No crossing the line, no weird behavior. Just lie down and sleep quietly. Hey, hey. Before she could finish her sentence, Chung Jun, as if accustomed to it, took Ruan Jiu Jiu's small hand and led her towards the bed. Ruan Jiu Jiu panicked a little. What are you doing? Chung Jun said naturally. Sleeping, of course. And sleeping meant truly sleeping. Each took a blanket and wrapped themselves tightly. Under Ruan Jiu Jiu's strict orders, an invisible line seemed to exist between the two blankets, prohibiting Chung Jun from crossing it. Facing each other felt awkward, and lying flat felt strange, as if they had actually done something more. Ruan Jiu Jiu wrapped herself in her blanket, turned over, and faced away from Chung Jun. They settled into a quiet pre-sleep state. Ruan Jiu Jiu closed her eyes, but her expression remained tense, her cheeks tight, as if she were enduring something. Chung Jun, don't sleep facing me. Chung Jun's slow voice came from behind her. I'm not. Ruan Jiu Jiu continued to endure. Your breath is on the back of my neck. Chung Jun. Oh. Faced with the imminent danger of being punched, Chung Jun finally regained his survival instinct and slowly shifted. Ruan Jiu Jiu finally no longer felt the faint airflow on her neck, that strange sensation that had nearly made her hair stand on end. Is this how married couples sleep? For someone like her, who had high demands for sleep, she couldn't imagine a scenario where two people shared the same blanket, arms touching, and one's movements disturbed the other. How could anyone possibly sleep like that? Ruan Jiu Jiu's mind continued to wander. She wondered if Chung Jun was asleep, if he was staring at the back of her head, and how he was feeling. After all, this was probably Chung Jun's first time sleeping in the same bed with someone else. A little nervous, Chung Jun said. Huh. Ruan Jiu Jiu was startled. How do you know what I'm thinking? Chung Jun slowly said. You're thinking why it feels so strange for two people to sleep together. Ruan Jiu Jiu was speechless. He had guessed everything. In the pitch-black night, the curtains were drawn tight, allowing Ruan Jiu Jiu to only vaguely make out the ceiling light. She huddled and rolled herself into her blanket. She had expected to feel anxious and uncomfortable lying in the same bed as Chung Jun, but now it felt not so bad. Ruan Jiu Jiu asked, what about your feelings? Compared to her, Chung Jun should be even more averse to physical contact with others. Facing Ruan Jiu Jiu's question, Chung Jun paused for a moment. It feels as if it was always meant to be this way. Ah. The confession-like words made Ruan Jiu Jiu unconsciously shrink further into her blanket. Fortunately, the room was completely dark, hiding her blushing face and saving her from further embarrassment. Silence returned to the room. Ruan Jiu Jiu, gazing at the ceiling, was the first to speak. Even though you don't let me worry about these things, I'm a little afraid that Chu Wei will do something to you. Chang Jun turned his face, his gaze fixed on her. Did you have nightmares again? Ruan Jiu Jiu had dreamed of him. Just chewing on those words made Chang Jun's tone unconsciously joyful. It's nothing. I just dreamed that Chu Wei hurt you. Ruan Jiu Jiu mumbled softly. Some of the content was very similar to reality, so I'm a little scared. Oh, Chang Jun? Are you asleep? Ruan Jiu Jiu, with her back to Chang Jun, struggled to roll herself in her blanket over. As she turned, she immediately crossed the invisible line, bumping with a thud into Chang Jun's blanket. Ruan Jiu Jiu looked up, her lips almost brushing against Chang Jun's jaw. In her panic, she quickly stumbled back, trying to put more distance between them. They were too close. So close that in her fleeting, panicked glance, she saw Chang Jun staring at her. The emotion surging in his eyes almost tangible, poking at the softest defenses in her heart. Ruan Jiu Jiu awkwardly chuckled at him, then suddenly realized the air conditioner in the room hadn't been turned on at all. Someone had complained about being cold, yet was perfectly calm in her room. Clearly, his true intentions lay elsewhere. I'll turn on the air conditioner. No need. Then I. Don't move. Chang Jun's voice was very low, as if suppressing something, 2 words bursting from his throat, the husky ending of the word rising. Ruan Jiu Jiu stared at him, stunned. As her eyes adjusted to the darkness, Chang Jun's face magnified before her. The delicate lines of his eyebrows, the beautiful curve of his lips, and most crucially, those eyes that surged with a breathtaking beauty, almost criminal in its allure. Ruan Jiu Jiu swallowed, her throat dry. This face was too handsome. She had absolutely no room to refuse. It felt like 1,000 ants crawling all over her, making Ruan Jiu Jiu lose her composure. As if possessed, Ruan Jiu Jiu slowly leaned forward. She could feel Chang Jun's somewhat erratic breathing. Under his unwavering gaze, Ruan Jiu Jiu tilted her head and with a slight tremble, pressed a soft kiss to his lips. Chang Jun's lips were cool. Ruan Jiu Jiu's single kiss was like a raging fire igniting a grassland, turning his breathing into a heated rhythm. Like a chick pecking at rice, or a dragonfly touching the water, Ruan Jiu Jiu's soft and sweet lips lingered for a moment before leaving his. To appear nonchalant, like an experienced pro, Ruan Jiu Jiu cleared her throat. Mine. Her earlier promise of a peaceful night's sleep was utterly shattered by this action. Suddenly, Ruan Jiu Jiu's lips were captured in a kiss. The fervent breath and the scorching heat of his lips made her panic a little, her mind going blank, momentarily forgetting to resist. Chang Jun's actions were not as gentle as usual. He licked, savoring the exquisite taste, and couldn't resist biting her lip. Ruan Jiu Jiu cried out in pain, and then even her gasping sounds vanished between his lips. Surely Chang Jun wasn't actually going to eat her this time. Ruan Jiu Jiu, like a trapped young beast, trembled as she whispered his name. Chang Jun! Chang Jun! Her pleas only made it harder for him to contain his surging restlessness. Ruan Jiu Jiu thought tonight she was probably doomed. The kiss was intense and prolonged, making Ruan Jiu Jiu almost forget to breathe, leaving her dizzy and lightheaded. She tried to wriggle free from the blanket but found it too tightly wrapped. Chang Jun also tried to reach out and hold her down, only to discover that Ruan Jiu Jiu had tucked his blanket in so tightly, even wrapping it around him twice, that he couldn't move. Ruan Jiu Jiu squirmed, unable to lift the blanket. Chang Jun moved, unable to lift the blanket. They both suddenly broke from the kiss, their eyes meeting. Ruan Jiu Jiu! Chang Jun! Waking abruptly from her daze, Ruan Jiu Jiu felt incredibly awkward. Her lips were swollen and tender from the bite. If the situation allowed, she would have punched Chang Jun. Chang Jun asked, "Can't we continue?" Ruan Jiu Jiu. Sleep. The story has begun. Stay tuned to see how Ruan Jiu Jiu takes control of her fate. If you enjoyed this preview, don't forget to like, share, subscribe and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what's next.